Money FM 89.3. Best of breakfast. Mind your business. Only on Money FM 89.3.
Yes, it's time to mind your business on The Breakfast Show with me, Audrey Seek, and Ryan Huang. And we're fresh off the weekend's SG60 celebrations, Ryan. What a weekend that was. And while the spotlight often falls on our big names and big achievements, there's another group of heroes who keep this country running quietly in the background. And we're talking about the hawkers who fire up their walks before dawn, the craftsmen who preserve century-old traditions, and the small businesses that carry our culture into the future.
That's right, and this year's My Community Festival celebrates them through the theme My First Journey, not just the first steps in life, but the first steps in business, in recovering, in starting over, and lots more. So joining us is Kwek Li Yong. He is the Executive Director of My Community, a civic society he co-founded back in 2010 to document social memories, celebrate civic life, and champion community arts and heritage. His team has brought together farmers, fishermen, artisans, and everyday Singaporeans to share the beginnings of what has shaped us to become who we are, what makes Singapore tick, and all that's happening behind the scenes. Good morning, Leon. How are you doing today?
Yeah, hello, good morning everyone. Doing well, still okay.
Sounds great. I hope that you enjoyed the SG60 celebrations as well. And we understand that My Community's festival theme this year is the first journey, and that celebrates all kinds of beginnings, right? In life, in business, and in community. How does this idea connect to the small businesses and craftsmen featured in the festival?
So this is the 6th edition of the My Community Festival. So this festival invites Singaporeans to explore how communities across Singapore explore, honor, and celebrate life's beginnings. So from postpartum rituals and confinement meals to spiritual renewal and emotional recovery. So we have extensive lineup of guided tours, experiences, and discussions that are curated around the theme My First Journey. Because for every birth and coming of age ceremonies, there are custom-made paraphernalia accompanying each step of the rituals and playing a central role in the marking life's new beginnings. So these handcrafted accessories were made by our craftsmen and small businesses, and they embody the hope and blessings that the families wish upon their child's first journey in life. So whether it's a bengkong belly wrap, kata kueh, or even like an artisan crafting a tai mau pi from a child's hair, so every item carries deep cultural and emotional meaning, and there are physical expressions of care, continuity, and the family's prayers for good health and happiness.
Okay, Leon, let's take a step back and talk about the My Community Festival. What drives you to organize this and then to feature some of these names, from kueh makers to farmers? They aren't exactly household names. Why is it important to spotlight them now?
I think during National Day is a perfect time for us to remind that Singapore is not just built by the big names that we see in the news, but it's also about the everyday people, whether it's the kueh maker that woke up at 4 a.m. every day, or the farmer that is tending to the crops, rain or shine, and or the craftsman that's keeping the skill alive. So they may not be famous, but they keep our traditions and our local economy going.
Yeah, so you talked about the Meet My Craftsmen series, which showcases people like the kueh maker Kelvin To. We are also talking about the calligrapher Go Yao Ki, toy surgeon Jane Cher. These crafts are extremely niche, right? Often very time intensive as well. What challenges do they face in keeping, their work sustainable in today's very fast-paced market?
I think one thing that I hear again and again from them is that time is their biggest challenge. So these crafts are slow by nature. So whether it's steaming kata kueh layer by layer, or folding each iwa kueh by hand, or even carefully repairing an old toy, there are no shortcuts. So in this fast-paced economy, everyone expects speed, low prices, and instant results. This also means it's very difficult for them to compete with the mass-produced goods. And of course, there are rising costs of ingredients, rent, and manpower. So it can be quite tough to break even. Another thing is about succession, finding younger people willing to learn, commit, and to accept that it's not just a 9-to-5 job. You're not just selling a product, but you're keeping alive a piece of heritage. So that's something that you cannot put a price on. But in reality, it still has to be business sense for them to continue. So ultimately, it's like whether these crafts survive comes down to how much we Singaporeans value them. If we see them as just nice to have, then they will just fade away. But if we support them, we are saying that we value their stories, we value their skills and the heritage that they carry. Then once a craft is gone, it's not just the product that disappears. It's a part of our shared history and identity that will never get back.
Yeah, that's a very nice way to kind of frame it, right? So there's this delicate balance between having to make sure tradition continues, but at the same time, staying relevant to the market, innovating for what people want right now. Have you been able to see any success stories out of this in terms of how they've been able to innovate and keep up to date and serve commercial interests?
Yeah, definitely. I think heritage is always about the present, keeping the different traditions relevant to the younger generation. So all the craftsmen, they're finding ways to innovate without losing their identity. So for instance, the kata kueh maker or the jixiang, they have been experimenting new flavors to attract younger customers. And even the calligrapher is offering workshops or creating modern merchandise. And even the toy surgeon, the toy doctor, is sharing how she repair her work on social media to gain a wider audience. So this is finding this sweet spot where the tradition still feels alive and relevant in today's market. But at the heart of it all, they all tell us the same thing, without community support, no amount of innovation can keep the craft going. And we Singaporeans, we play a huge role in deciding which traditions survive for the next generation.
Yeah, the festival also goes behind the plate, right? From local hawkers in after hours at my community to the Malaysian farmers and fishermen in my SG. So what have you learned about the economics and the resilience of these cross-border supply chains?
One of the key things I've learned is that our local food scene is actually built on this very delicate web of cross-border relationships. So a hawker in Singapore might depend on a Malaysia fisherman for fresh seafood, who in turn relies on a network of boat repairmen, ice suppliers and transporters. So these layers of interdependence mean that any disruption, whether it's a border closure that we saw during COVID, or a spike in fuel prices, or even changing weather patterns can ripple through this entire food chain. So economically, these supply chains are surprisingly lean. Margins are very thin. So resilience comes not from just big financial buffers, but also from the trust, loyalty, and flexibility. So, for instance, many hawkers told me that they keep their long-time suppliers even if cheaper options come along, because they value the reliability and their shared connection with one another. And what's fascinating is how adaptable they have become. So some farmers, they diversify crops. So they usually probably grow watermelons. They also grow the newer form of melons just to cater to the Singaporean market, to diversify and hedge against climate risk. And in palm plantation that we saw, they intercrop it with bananas and pineapples. And of course, some fishermen, they also explore direct to consumer sales, which means to bypass wholesale market or the fishery port. So this is not just survival tactics, but how modern business thinking can work hand in hand with heritage. So I think this also deepened my appreciation for the fact that our meals, our food, aren't just the work of one person or one store. They're the result of these entire communities across border moving in sync. And of course, sometimes when we think about Malaysia, right, some Singaporeans might have some condescending views towards them sometimes, which is not very appropriate.
Yeah, like pointed out, it's an intricate web of different things happening just to make things happen. So the My Community Festival will allow folks to go behind the scenes, go on some of these journeys, check out the durian plantations, fish farms, vegetable growers, so on and so forth. So a lot happening behind the scenes that some folks might not be aware of. And I think that is quite important for such a festival to actually be organized. So to that point, how does your festival help them? What are the tangible benefits that are brought about when your festival happens? Do they see a lot of orders come in? What actually are some of the more KPIs that you're monitoring to make sure things are going the way they are going?
Definitely, our own festival, we have the tangible KPIs beyond the intangible. I think the benefits go beyond just cultural appreciation. So for many businesses and craftsmen, the festival serves as a launch pad. And of course, we also see very tangible benefits. So when the participants make the kueh maker or the fish monger or the fish farmer, no longer just a product or dish on a plate. So these programs put a face to all these products. So when they hear a story, they understand the intricate and sometimes labor-intensive process that goes behind it. So for example, like when visitors are waiting and they witness for first-hand how the kueh maker, Kelvin To, steam the kata kueh layer by layer. So patiently waiting for every layer to set in before adding to the next. It's very visual. So they realize that it cannot be sold for the same price as the mass-produced snacks. Or when they talk to a fish farmer in our program, they hear how this fish farmer wakes up before sunrise to feed and monitor his stock every day, rain or shine. They understand the commitment involved. So once people see that, they are more willing to spend a little more, not just for the product, but to support the craft and the livelihood behind it. So that's when we see the ripple effect. So increased orders and after the festivals or new collaborations.
Yeah, a lot of work, a lot of commitment when it comes to being one of these unsung heroes. So as we celebrate SG60, Li Yong, how would you like Singaporeans to rethink our relationship with these economic heroes?
So on National Day, we often think about the big milestones, especially when Singapore is celebrating our 60th anniversary, our skyline, our achievements on the world stage. But I would like the listeners to also think about the quiet, everyday contributions that keep Singapore going, the hawkers that have been awake since 4 a.m., the farmer across the causeway making sure our vegetables arrive fresh, or the craftsman who keeps the dying skill alive. So I would love for people to see them not just as service providers, but as partners in our shared history. So every time we choose to buy from them, tell their story, or bring a friend to their shop, we're actually strengthening the foundation of our economy and preserving a piece of our heritage. So this National Day, let's celebrate the people whose names may not make the headlines, but whose work keeps Singapore's heart beating.
Yes, well, SG60, the theme was Building Our Singapore Together, and My Community Festival runs till 17th of August, all about my first journey, as it ties in with the narrative that unsung heroes deserve to be sung as well in terms of our praises. And we really appreciate your time here, Li Yong. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. That was Kwek Li Yong, co-founder and executive director of My Community. Keep it here on Money FM 89.3.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.